This is Vlad for rarefoundation.com, and we are here with doctor and psychiatrist originally from Saudi Arabia, but now working in Germany, Dr. Taleb El Abdulmohsen. And Dr. Mohsen, perhaps you could tell us a bit about your journey, a bit about your background education, how you came to Germany, what you do in Germany, and then maybe we'll move on to your topic.
Well, I graduated from medical school in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and then I moved to Germany. I specialized in psychiatry in Germany, and I work currently in a governmental hospital in Germany.
All right. So, as somebody who's had the opportunity to work in a German hospital, and I guess also specializing in psychiatry, you've probably seen a lot of things concerning. Now, your particular issue, that what brings you to us today, is I guess the state of the refugees from the Islamic world coming into Europe and especially Germany. Would that be about right?
Well, when I started my public activism in March 2016 on Twitter with my real name for the first time, I used my real name in my activism. 30 minutes later, a Saudi woman who was accompanying her child on a scholarship in the United States contacted me with direct messages on Twitter and asked me for help to apply for asylum. And that's where I started my activism, helping refugees from particularly Saudi Arabia, but in practice, actually, from anywhere in the world, if I could help. So it was not planned. I mean, I started my activism to criticize Islam initially, and then people just flooded me with requests for help regarding asylum and refugees, and I just responded to them. I helped them. Yeah? That's how I started my refugee activism.
That is great. So, from the point of view of the Western world, there has been a great deal of distortion of important language concerning things like a number of things, but one of them is the term refugee. So, a great deal of people are coming to the West under the rubric of refugees appear actually to be something quite different. Can you tell us specifically the people who are looking for your help to get refugee status? What differentiates them from the teeming throngs, and where do you see the issues here?
Well, most of the people who approach me um, come from Saudi Arabia. That's because I am from Saudi Arabia. So basically, when you want to ask someone about how to get a visa, how to get into an asylum country legally, you naturally tend to ask someone from the same country. And that's why most of my, let's call it clients, actually, I don't take any money. I give them money from my own salary, but I call them clients. In this context, most of them are from Saudi Arabia, but I'm open for everybody. I mean, I had people from Canada, even re- literally asking for help to seek asylum in Europe because they are threatened by their Muslim families, what is called honor killing. And I had also requests for help from uh, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, many other countries actually. So I'm open for everybody if I could help. But most of the people who ask me for help are from Saudi Arabia, and most of them are actually ex-Muslims or tend to be secular. Although I'm open, I help Muslims even with my own money equally if I can do that. I don't pay attention. I don't ask people about their religious backgrounds. But most of people um, who ask me for help happen to be ex-Muslims because I am ex-Muslim, and they feel that they are communicating with someone with the same uh, background. So let's summarize that by saying that most of the people I help are Saudi ex-Muslims.
Very interesting. So it sounds to me like the people that you are trying to help would be legitimately classed as refugees in using the old language, you know, prior to prior to what we call refugees now, and further that these would be refugees in the sense that, especially women, I guess, who would be looking to escape the consequences of a oppressive Sharia law, and that would include people in Canada and other non-Muslim countries where Islam has now taken a toehold. Is that fair to say? Then to summarize.
That's right. Most of them, let's say, definitely there are. I'm not trying to say that they are, perfectly clean, but most of them are literally legit, and they are basically escaping the persecution from the Islamic Sharia for reasons, related to the oppression, like imposing the head cover called hijab on women, or basically some of them even threatened because just that they left Islam or they criticized Islam. Like one of the last cases I helped, he is a Saudi guy who had a Twitter account with 9 followers, only 9 followers. And he was complaining on Twitter because he was forced to fast Ramadan. So the Saudi prosecution, literally, the Saudi prosecution did some, intelligence work to get his identity, literally, on Twitter. And they were able to identify him. I'm not sure if they did that with IP address or with social engineering, but they identified him and they opened a case for him. They summoned him for interrogation. And after the interrogation, he contacted me immediately. And I told him, if you want to escape, you can do it tomorrow because the UK allows for an electronic visa, some sort of electronic visa. So you can get that immediately within minutes, and you can buy the air ticket immediately. So he said, well, tomorrow, I'm not that in a hurry, but I did probably 3 days maximally. And in 3 days, he was in the UK. He escaped from there, and he has, yeah, right now a public presence on Twitter. He narrated his story on Twitter publicly, and he got asylum. I guess that was like 2 weeks ago in the UK. So that's the kind of, I mean, this is an important example because he had only 9 followers on Twitter and he was anonymous on Twitter, but they used either his IP address or social engineering to identify him, and they summoned him. They opened a case, investigation case for him, and if he is like if they proved what that he was criticizing Islam, he would have been definitely gone to prison. So they do this actively. It's not that just if someone is confronting them or publicly speaking. No, they do this actively. They search for anyone criticizing Islam actively. They invest money into that, and that's why people are escaping.
So, just by the way, had he not escaped Saudi Arabia, what would be the consequences of not being caught not fasting during Ramadan or skipping lunch? Like,
Um, right. Um, let me first talk about the legal and then the some kind of the usual consequences. So the legal consequences, if he does not deny that he criticizes Islam or fasting Ramadan, and they did not claim falsely that he is mentally ill, so he is destined to be killed officially. And it happened already to someone called Ahmad Rayeh Al Shamari, um, who, as you can find his name on the, what is that called? The American Commission for religious freedom. I'm the one who contacted them to add his name to their list. So Ahmed Faye al Shamari teared the tables of the Quran up, and they caught him. And his lawyer argued that he was drunk and he was drug intoxicated, but that did not help. They insisted and they issued a final verdict twice, not only once, twice. Execution, the death penalty for him. Still, they did not remove it until now. And they want to execute him just because he teared the Quran up once, only once. Although he apologized and he claimed that he was drug intoxicated and the drug at the time. So if they don't want to execute you, you're destined to the death penalty, definitely. In other cases, I know, I hear about, because of the low profile of the person who did this, they themselves, without him say, without the person, the ex-Muslim saying or claiming, they themselves claim that he is mentally ill in order to avoid the death penalty, and then they issue, just prison time of like 7 years instead of the death penalty, and that happened in the past. I know some cases because they do not want attention. So let's talk. If they uh, are compassionate with you, you will get 7 years in prison. If they are not, you'll get the death penalty.
So, if I'm understanding you, then you're saying that at least in Saudi Arabia, and very likely in other Sharia-based countries, observance is forced. That the failure to observe Islamic norms is very likely the death penalty, but they may find a workaround and mitigate it to 7 years in prison. And my guess is that the prisons are not like Western prisons. So it would be an astonishingly harsh punishment for failure to observe. Now,
Mhm.
I suspect that you are working with these people because your experience with the German or European states are not handling what we could all maybe agree are legitimate refugees the way that they're handling the throngs of people just showing up in boats. So is that correct? Like, do you find that there's a discrepancy between the people that you're trying to help and how the state is dealing with the people that are marching through Christmas markets this week in Berlin?
Um, it's not, it's not related primarily to granting asylum to asylum applicants, but rather to what happens after that. Because let me tell you, I helped um, asylum seekers in all reputable asylum countries. Well, let's say like Germany, the US, the UK, Canada, France, Ireland, Norway, Australia, New Zealand, Finland, Holland, Switzerland, and some other countries, So I had like even South Korea. I had like gathered lots of information, and what I noticed is that if you are a alleged Saudi ex-Muslim, the most likely country to reject your asylum, despite being clearly legit, is Germany. Like if you're legit, like in the Netherlands, Holland, it's like 0% that they will reject your asylum application, and then and in New Zealand it's 0%. In the UK, I'm not very sure, but I haven't found any clear case of a legit asylum applicant who has been rejected in the UK. But that happened in Germany frequently. And Germany was the only country in which a alleged Saudi ex-Muslim could face rejection of his asylum application. Like some applicants came to the interview, the asylum interview, and they said, "Look, I announced leaving Islam on Twitter. Here's a copy of my announcement on Twitter. I said my real name, and I said that I'm leaving Islam." And the interviewer says, "No, no, you didn't need that. We don't need it. Let's, just talk about." And the interviewer would not even mention anything about the announcement of leaving Islam, and then would reject the application based on what he calls, lack of evidence or some discrepancies that happens due to memory issues. So what I found is that, Germany is probably the most suspicious country in this, regard.
Did you say auspicious or suspicious?
Suspicious.
Suspicious. Okay,
Be-
so in other words, just again, I want to reflect this back at you because the audio wasn't perfect. And just to be clear, so Germany appears to be the country in which there is the least likelihood of accepting a legitimate refugee from the Islamic world for legitimate reasons. Yet Germany also seems to be the country, I don't think you said this, but Germany seems to be the country that is the most welcoming to a jihadi mindset. Would that be
well,
fair?
let's talk about the numbers, okay? So if a Syrian citizen applies for asylum in Germany, the chance to be granted asylum is 99.8%. That's public. These are public statistics, okay? 99.8%. While if a Saudi citizen applies for asylum in Germany, the chance is only 70%. Although most of them, I mean, from my own experience, I know that many of the rejected 30%, many of them are ex-Muslims. So Germany seems to be welcoming Syrians like without any issues. Although many of them are not only Muslims but Islamists in the literal meaning of the word. Um, and while rejecting many Saudis, 30% of the Saudis are rejected, and some of them I know them personally are ex-Muslims. Definitely.
Well, the results of this policy are becoming quite obvious in Germany and across the West, frankly. So I know that actually I can tell you anecdotally that in Canada, we rejected any people from Syria that weren't Muslim. We'd only accept Muslim refugees in Canada, according to people that I've met on the street who were Christian and had to lie and say they were Muslim, which is very curious because the Christians you would think in a Muslim country would have a better case for being, especially when that country was under attack by the Islamic State. Anyway, neither here nor there. So, um, what do you see needs to be done to solve this issue?
Well, before talking about what we need to be done, we need to talk about the extent of what Germany is doing against ex-Muslims, and especially Saudi ex-Muslims, because I have lots of evidence. Absolute. I mean, I have an experience. I have evidence with me that Germany is actively trying to destroy the lives of Saudi ex-Muslims, regardless of where they reside, even if they are outside Germany, even if they are not intending to seek asylum in Germany. It's absolutely true that Germany is trying to destroy their lives. I mean, I have evidence. I mean, there's no doubt. Germany created some sort of an overt operation, covert operation to chase chase um, Saudi ex-Muslims and try to destroy their lives. Absolutely, I have evidence of this.
I totally just want, I really want to get more clarity on that. So you are saying then that apostates or ex Muslims within Germany are under a systematic um, persecution by the state, although covert, and not by the Saudis or not. I know the Iranians are also running operations like that within Germany, but the actual German government itself is running covert operations of harassment and intimidation to destroy the lives, cancel culture, whatever have you, of apostate or ex Muslims within Germany. Is that right?
It is much more than harassment and intimidation. It is literally committing serious crimes such as sexual abuse, pressure to lead Saudi ex Muslims to consume drugs, donation fraud, lying, lying in order to deport Saudi ex Muslims to Saudi Arabia to be executed there. And that's only, the major um, crimes that Germany is um, carrying out against Saudi ex-Muslims. But there are, here and there, some kind of like disinformation, um, verbal insults to disturb the lives of Saudi ex-Muslims. And you said within Germany. No, it's not within Germany. It is everywhere they can reach Saudi ex-Muslims. Even if you are outside Germany as a Saudi ex-Muslims, as a Saudi ex-Muslim, you are outside Germany and you are not intending to visit Germany or seek asylum inside Germany. Despite that, they will try to destroy your life if they can. Absolutely. I have
And
evidence.
this is the German state at some level, German intelligence or whatever, doing this, right? Part of the German
You
government.
know that during the Nazi Germany, they called it Gestapo. In German, it's the Geheime Staatspolizei, which means basically the secret state police. Okay, that's exactly what's. I mean, I don't find a better term. It is the Gestapo. It is the secret state police right now, and I have evidence that the state police is carrying out a covert operation absolutely to chase Saudi ex Muslims everywhere in the world to destroy their lives.
So I have to ask you, Rare Foundation, I think it was just a few weeks ago, we covered a story about an expat apostate. I think he was an Iranian citizen that had been grabbed and gang raped. And it was a man, and he'd been gang raped by a bunch of agents that were said to be also from Iran, seemed to be operating under Iranian state direction. Do you think maybe that was a German op?
No, absolutely no, no. I mean, I've been following the situation in Iran my whole life because I come from the Shia background. So I know that the condition in Iran is extremely miserable. I know precisely what's happening in Iran. I know that Zahra Kazemi, the Canadian Iranian journalist, has been raped and tortured to death in Iran. If you can, I mean, you can Google that Zahra Kazemi, and um, the interview with her mother was published on the Toronto Star, a Canadian newspaper. I read that also the day it was published. So I know Iran has a very long history in committing crimes against its people uh, for political reasons. If you're an opponent, there's nothing that can protect you inside Iran from all kinds of crimes, rape, torture, and death. Everything can happen to you if you are inside Iran, even if you are a Canadian citizen, like what happened to Zahra Kazemi. And I cried on that day when Sorry. Uh, that was very difficult day for me when I was reading the interview with her mother, describing her dead body after she received it from the Iranian intelligence. So that's a different story. What happens in Germany? They absolutely used sexual abuse against female Saudi refugees. But it's not like the Iranian regime. I'm not equalizing the German government with North Korea. Definitely, I'm not, you know, it's not black or white, but some kinds of sexual abuse were employed absolutely by the German authorities themselves against female Saudi refugees. I had a couple of stories in this regard, and it turns out that the criminal who did this is fully protected by all concerned German authorities, which are, in my experience, the police, the national security, the prosecution, and the judges. Because I'm the one fighting to reveal the truth about what happened, and I had a long experience. It took 7 years. When I talk about this, I always say it's not 7 days, it's not 7 months, it's 7 years of experience until I came to the final conclusions that all concerned German authorities are trying to protect the criminals who did this. And they went so far that the German police itself stole a USB stick from my mailbox to destroy the evidence. Yeah. And I have everything to show that it's absolutely the German police. I can describe the evidence to you right now. And if you like, after the interview, if you like to see the evidence yourself, I can send it to you.
Actually, if you could send it to me by a service like WeTransfer.com or MyAirbridge.com, I would love to keep a copy of it, if for no other reason, just to keep it safe. So, if you
Mhm.
would care to send me that, I would be honored to look at it and store it somewhere offline. Meanwhile, so I think I'm just guessing here, but you must be running up against a couple of issues. One would be threats to your personal life, uh, and how it's lived, or the German state must be pushing back against you in some way. And two is you must be up against a lot of people who just are not allowing themselves to believe the extent to which a republic style democracy or a republic like Germany has fallen to these kinds of um, authoritarian measures. Would that be correct? And if so, do you want to comment on those?
The first thing is you mentioned the word the threat. That's exactly accurate. I'm facing threats. Like for example, when I had for the last 4 years uh, a German governmental service of hiding my address. Because in Germany, if you have like a small grocery store and you want to get the address of anyone in Germany, you can pay €2 and get the address because you can claim that he owes me money. Yeah, that's legal, pretty legal, unless you're lying. Some of them would definitely lie to get the addresses of political opponents. So there is this service of hiding and or concealing your address. It's a free service, but you have just to justify it. So I had it for 4 years, and the last time I went, um, first of all, they sent me a letter saying that you have to renew this service because it will expire on the 17th of May 2024. So I went on the 14th of May, and when I went there, the first thing they said to me is that it had already expired on the 11th of May, And I told them, but you have stated that it will expire on the 17th of May. They said, well, that was a typo. This was the first thing. And then the woman who was processing my application for extending this service, she said to me, delete your Twitter account. She literally said to me, delete your Twitter account. And I said, no, I do this because this is an activism. I'm in Germany. I have the right to do activism. If you are concerned about something wrong within my activism, you can tell me about it. But this is basically I'm protecting, asylum seekers. I'm helping them, and of course, I criticize Islam, which is my right. And she was displeased by my answer, and then she sent me a letter rejecting my application with the claim that I myself published my own address, which is completely a lie. That's a flat lie. They just claim that, I mean, in Germany right now, what I'm facing is that basically they have zero reliability. They would say anything to justify threatening my life. So why did they expose my address? Like my address is now exposed for any grocery store owner in Germany since the 11th of May 2024. I don't have lots of concern about my own safety, but my concern is why did they expose my address? And I need to say I don't have lots of concern because if they want to kill me, I'm not someone who is afraid of death. Yeah, they might kill me. I know this. I'm not someone who is afraid of death, but I have to do everything to protect myself. It's my duty to protect myself. But why would they expose my address? I'm very sure that one number one is that they are trying to intimidate me, and number two, they might be really planning to do something. I don't need to talk about it. You have to understand it. Anyway, so they exposed my address since the 11th of May 2024, claiming that I published my address on the internet, which is completely a lie. Um, and then what was the second point you mentioned? I guess the
That in your efforts to try to explain to people what the true nature of these things are, that you may be up against the general public unwilling to believe that the state of the republic is that decrepit.
exactly. Well, there is actually a small number of people who reacted by blocking me on Twitter. Some of them just exactly like what you said, they did not believe me. So the claims are extraordinary. And these people did not even give me the chance to provide them with evidence, although I have evidence, okay? And there are also a number of people who are actually part of this thing. Like when I contacted someone who is actually um most likely is actually part of the German efforts to chase Saudi ex-Muslims. He blocked me, and then one of his friends blocked me. But the largest uh, portion of people whom I contacted would basically show disinterest. They are not interested. They seek an excuse for themselves, or they themselves feel that this is too big for them. They feel afraid. They feel intimidated. When they believe me, they feel that they're gonna get into trouble if they help me. So most people avoided helping me because they are afraid.
Well, at least they believe you. Um, there's something to be said for that. So, how do you feel that organizations like ours could help you?
Well, uh, you are the first person in 7 years who responded to me positively. I mean, you are the first journalist. I mean, in the field of journalism, you are the first person. I have been talking to all journalists with whom I can talk to, with whom I can communicate for the last 7 years. And you and Amy, of course, are the first ones to respond positively. I have done everything what and by the way, I have to say this. Um, After the uh, especially the case of Raha Al Qanun, who's a Saudi uh, refugee in Canada. Raha Al Qanun was 18 years old when she got stuck in Thailand airport, and they wanted to deport her back to Kuwait or Saudi Arabia, and Canada granted her asylum, so she could go, she was able to fly to Canada, and she's living in Canada right now. So through the case of Rahaf Al Qunun, I became famous. I was already known, but I became more famous after that case, and tens of journalists contacted me. So I got lots of contacts. I became known. If you Google my name, Taleb Al Abdulmohsen, you can see that I'm a well-known person worldwide. I appeared on TV 3 times, and I gave many interviews to journalists. And despite my contacts among journalists, so I tried to contact every single journalist whom I knew for the last 7 years. None of them responded positively except you, and of course, Amy was your colleague.
I have to say, that hurts to hear. It hurts as an indictment of Western journalism and Western civilization. But I don't think it's surprising to people who are paying attention. So I guess you know what I think the message is very clear. I feel like this should be the first in a series of things where we could drill down on some particulars over time. Um, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, yeah, great. If I mean, if you like, we can do this. We can do this again and again. And I just want to add that when I contacted journalists over the last 7 years, of course, evidence accumulated over time. So none of them showed any interest in evidence or any concern, and to some of them, I even sent the evidence already. That I haven't got any response. They don't care, and you know, it just shows that there's something happening behind the scenes, behind the curtains. It seems that this is much bigger than what I myself thought, because at the beginning I thought, look, I mean, these journalists are interested in the safety and the well-being of um, a particular group of people, the female Saudi asylum seekers. Well, that's fine. So let's talk about them, about the abuse happening against these people, female Saudi refugees from German actors. Now it's not the Saudi actors, it's the German actors. But once, the very same group, the very same kind of abuse happened, but the criminals are different. And that's where journalists turned on the dead and the deaf mode.
Listen, I'm going to say on behalf of myself and Rare Foundation, thank you very much for doing this and for taking the
You're
time to do
welcome.
this with us. I think you are hearkening back to a time when refugee meant what it was supposed to mean, and you're doing your best to help people who legitimately are deserving, and perhaps more frighteningly exposing a real state agenda across the West, which is quite terrifying to contemplate. Actually, when you look at who they're helping and who they're not, and I think that's a much bigger issue than what we're dealing with right here, right now. But what you're describing is most certainly a component of that, and must not be ignored, must be helped, and perhaps also must be seen as part of this greater issue. Would that be fair as a summary?
To clarify the context, let's not forget that the famous German magazine Der Spiegel, um, on its cover in an issue of 2007, said the silent Islamization of Mecca, Germany. So the process of Islamizing Germany and Europe is not new. It's something that started approximately in 2006, and it was mentioned on the cover of the Der Spiegel in 2007 under the rubric silent Islamization. That's not something new. And remember, 2007 is 1 year before Obama became president. So this is something much bigger than anyone would imagine. There is something, playing in the background, and we need to take it seriously. I mean, if you listen to someone like Tommy Robinson or even to Elon Musk, and you're kind of illiterate to and ignorant to this background, that the process of Islamization, you will immediately think that these people are conspiracy theorists. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would do that if I had no idea about the process, what's going on regarding Islamization. But from my own experience, I can tell you for 100% that everything Elon Musk says, or Tommy Robinson, or other people like I think Alex Jones, or who are classified by the mainstream media as radicals on the far right, they are telling the truth. They are absolutely telling the truth. And I'm saying this as a leftist. I'm not on the right. I'm a leftist. I'm actually pro postmodernism, even these kind of postmodern values that are being attacked nowadays by the by the people on the right, like the Black Lives Matter, or the Black Wave, where people prefer, or the positive discrimination, for, not against, for black people. I'm someone with the mentality of these kind of postmodern values, and what I discovered as a leftist is that leftists are the worst criminals on this planet. They claim that they are pro certain values, the values which are always tailored to help the disabled. They claim what they do is exactly the opposite. Like what happens to female Saudi ex-Muslims is definitely an evidence that leftists are the worst criminals on this planet. And I say this as a leftist myself.